All right, this is Biblical Theology, Exegesis, and Hermeneutics, where meaning is always context-driven. I'm your host, John Strazicich, and this will be the third and final installment of our presentation here on the Firmament. And today we'll wrap it all up, and we'll look at what it meant to the that whatever Moses intended it, and as the first readers understood it, and then to make the other big quantum leap is then to how does this translate into into common sense in the 21st century. So we'll be looking at that, and we will definitely look at the hermeneutical issues involved in this. And so we're going to start off here, and we'll look at some of the poetic passages, especially, we'll basically be looking at Psalm 19 here, in the first strophe here on the hymn of creation here. And it'll be important here then for, bridging, because this text goes back to Genesis, chapter 1, verses 6 to 8, specifically, and we'll see that. So open up your Bibles to Genesis chapter 1, and also then to Psalm 19. Okay, now coming here to this slide, we're taking this is just a little curveball being thrown at you. We're still working on our subject matter here, but we're going to come to some poetic texts, and before we read these poetic texts, it would be good for you to be brought up to speed on how to understand reading Hebrew poetry. And the very, very first presentation that I made on my particular channel here, I worked on this on the fundamental operating principles of biblical Hebrew poetry, and because basically the Hebrew Bible, almost a third of it, the size of your New Testament, that's how much poetry is written in the Hebrew Bible, whatever the size of your New Testament is. So there's a ton of poetry in the Hebrew Bible, and there is a way to read it, and I want to walk you through a few steps here so that you'll understand what we're reading and how to read it. The canonical poetry of the Hebrew Bible may be succinctly characterized as distinctive modes of discourse, which are communicated and developed by means of discrete units of linearized rhythmical thoughts that typically trade in and oscillate between accentual, syntactic, and semantic principles, etc. So this is basically how I ended up understanding the fundamental operating principles. Go ahead and go back to my the very first video that I made here on the site, and that's all laid out for you. Okay, then coming here, then we look at Robert Alter. He is emeritus, from UC Berkeley, professor, and he was the absolute, just stellar guy, and everybody, we all used his textbook in all of our classes that we taught on Hebrew poetry, and he has this beautiful quote: "The simplest strategy of intensification is the introduction of the second verset of one parallel term that is obviously stronger than its counterpart in the first verset." And so we can now here's the very first verset, line A, we can say, and the second verset is here. This would be line, you can either refer to line A, or we can have line B here, okay? and it's then there is this caesura here that divides the thoughts of line A from line B by you kind of come to a little stop here. So he's saying the simplest strategy of intensification is the introduction of the second verset of one parallel term that is obviously stronger than its counterpart in the first verset. So, for the waves of death washed around me. Okay, now the torrents of the underworld terrified me. So we have waves then being paralleled by torrents. We have, washed around me versus terrified me. So the first introduction, the first line, the first verset, line A, introduces the thought, the waves of death washed around me. And then line B is where the theological cache is, the torrents of the underworld terrified me. So you can see that. Now reread this again. The simplest strategy of intensification is the introduction of the second verset of one parallel term that is obviously stronger than its counterpart in the first verset. So he's basically saying line A is introductory, line B is where the cache is at. All right, so we come here to another stellar Jewish commentator, James Kugel, hailing from Harvard. Kugel says that as parallelism suggests, there are quite a few lines in which B is clearly a continuation of A or a going beyond A in force of specificity. And this, it is suggested, corresponds to the expectation the ancient Hebrew listener or reader brought to every text. His ear was attuned to hearing A is so, and what's more, B is so. That is, B was connected to A, had something in common with it, but was not expected to be nor regarded as mere restatement. Okay, and then lastly, I think coming here to Gottwald, the fundamental formal feature of canonical poetry is the correspondence of thought. Very, very good here. In excessive half lines known as parallelism of members, parallelismus membrorum, Latin. The thought may be repeated, contrasted, advanced. It may be figurative, stair-like, or inverted. Parallelism may be both within lines and between lines. Just one of the all-time classic definitions here of Hebrew poetry coming to us by Norman Gottwald. Very awesome. Okay, so we did all of that to come to this slide here. Okay, the next two slides here. Okay, and it's very important that that we understand this conception of Hebrew poetry. We've got line A and we've got line B, and line A seems to be introductory. Line B is going to develop and somehow make the thought more concrete or specific or more objective. There's something about line B that has some force or specificity beyond which line A had. Okay, and there's other artistic things here, like opening, chiasmus here in our text. But we're going to be looking here at Psalm 19:1, and for the English people, you can look down here, and so it begins here with Lamnat Zeek Mitzmor LeDavid. So this is this superscription here in verse 1. And so verse 1 here in Hebrew is Lamnat Zeek Mitzmor LeDavid. It is the, to the choir master, a psalm of David. So this is a title of orchestration, musical genre, and title of authorship. Boom. All right there. And then the actual verse begins here in Hebrew in verse 2. But in our English versions, it's down here in verse 1. And so we have line A, and then we have line B. Okay. Now, some people don't know that I think we all know now that heavens and firmament are related terms here. Because remember, if we go back to Genesis 1:8, 8, Vayikra Elohim, he called the Rakia Shemayim, okay? And God called the firmament heaven. Okay, so God names the firmament and he gives it the name of heaven. So now when David comes to write Psalm 19, he's using the word heaven and the word firmament as synonymous parallelism. So he will begin with Shemayim in line A, but his real thoughts are going here in line B, which is the Rakia, okay? That's where his thoughts really lie, okay? Line A, he has Shemayim here, okay? So up here, HaShemayim. And so that's the way that this develops. So we'll look here. So we're going to look here at the relationship here. The heavens are, and we're going to say misoperim here. We're going to say this is a PL part. That this here is enumerating. The heavens are enumerating the glory of God, and the Rakia is declaring the works of his hands. So what we've got going on here is that this is a chiasmus. He starts with Shemayim here. He ends with Rakia here. He has the glory of God here. He has the works of his hands here. And he has the verbal ideas here in the form of participles. This is enumerating or telling. The heavens tell the glory of God, either telling or of enumerating. I think enumerating would be better. And then the Rakia declares works of hands. Now remember, word order in Hebrew, you don't have to follow, you don't have to follow it like in English, so they can wax poetic literally here in their artistic development of how they place the words mise en page, how its very placement on the page and how it's written. Then it can be very artistically done, as seen here. But the point is, here we got line A, introductory thought. The heavens are reporting the glory of God. What's more, the Rakia are declaring the works of his hands. Okay, so so we know about how the heavens declare the glory of God, that it's showing God's the honor that God has, and then the Rakia here is declaring the works of his hands. So we're going to look at this then, the heavens and the Rakia here are going to ultimately, when we get down here into 5C, I believe, where in them he pitched a tent for the sun. Well, that's the heavens, and the firmament are the tent in which the sun is housed. Okay, that's what this is going to get to. But we want to read this. So we have line A, then we have line B. So we know his thoughts are on the Rakia and on the works of God's hands. So the works of God in creation definitely are a witness to God. Okay. And that's what Paul says back in Romans, that they're without excuse. Why? Because they've understood that which was created, that it all came from God, and because of that they're without excuse. Okay, everybody knows God first of all by creation. Okay, now the works of God testify to God himself. So don't tell me that the works of that the very works of God don't testify to the knowledge of him. This is exactly what Psalm 19:1 is saying, and the same thing as Romans. Okay, so you want to twist the Bible, go right ahead and twist the Bible into whatever kind of little tulip you want to develop it into. Okay, now this is the cool part here. So when we get down here to 3, 4, and 5 here, now we saw that, the witness of the heavens here, okay, it's the heavens and the firmament. Then when you get to points 2 and 3, we have the continual witness of the heavens, or the firmament, okay? So it's 24/7. It's day and night, non-stop, 24 day and night. Look at verse 2 in your Bibles. Day to day bubbles forth speech. Love that translation here of Nabah here. Day to day bubbles forth speech. Night to night declares knowledge. There is no speech, there are no words where their voice is not heard. Their line goes out in all of the earth. Their words are at the end of the world. So we have the continual witness of the heavens, 24/7, day and night. The extent of that witness, there is no audible place where it's not heard. Their witness goes to all the earth, and it's at the end of the world. So he, he's using this synonymous parallelism, okay? Day to day bubbles forth speech, line A. Night to night declares knowledge, okay? So you have this synonymous parallelism, day and night, bubbling forth speech, declaring knowledge. And then we have here this quatrain here. We've got two distichs all developing the thought of the extent here of the heavens and firmament's witness. Notice here it says, there is no speech and there are no words where their voice. What's their voice here? It goes back to Shemayim and it goes back to Rakia. Okay, now that's very important here. Their line has gone out in all the earth. There, okay, there we got there, and their words here are at the end of the world. So that all points back here to Shemayim and Rakia here. So now we know when we come to the next line there, in them, okay, when you get to in them, Bahem, that means that is in the firmament and in the heavens, that in them he pitched a tent for the sun. So the sun is housed inside of the metaphorical tent of David. Okay, that is in the next slide there. Okay, where it says, you have to finish verse 5 here. Maybe in your English it will be in verse 6 or something, whatever it is, but it's at the end of the verse there. You'll see it. He pitched a tabernacle for the sun in the old King Jimmy, and so it just says La Shemesh Sham Ohel Bahem. In them he pitched a tent for the sun. Okay. So you notice here that when we look at Hebrew parallelism, everything's said twice, and it repeats itself, it builds upon itself, and it's not just the daytime, it's the nighttime witness, it's the day-to-day bubbles forth speech, night to night. It's 24/7, it's non-stop. And the heavens are doing this constantly. There is no place you can go in the created world where the voice of creation's not heard. The witness goes to the ends of the world. And it goes out into all, their line's gone out into all the world. So you have to say that the works of God testify to God himself. You're not going to say that the works of God is impossible to describe who God is. This is the testimony of some, but it's really it's not good theology. But anyhow, let's move on. Okay, I just have this particular slide here that you could stop it here anytime, but this is basically a a schismatic drawing here that is perceived of, through all the scriptures that we've gone through, with Amos 9, Amos 9:6, okay, and then remember we read Pirkei de Rabba Eliezer here, that quote there, that the clasps of heaven came down and attached themselves to the waters of the ocean. That was really cool, the way that he alluded to Amos 9. And then we had Ezekiel that shows us the firmament here that's crystalline in nature, and that we have in Genesis chapter 1 that, he built the firmament first on day 2, and it wasn't until day 4 here where he puts the sun, moon, and stars inside of the firmament. So he has to create the firmament first before the sun, moon, and stars can be placed inside of it, okay? And the waters above are up here. The waters beneath is anything down here in the form of precipitation or of clouds, or the waters down below. That's all the stuff below the firmament, okay? So don't get the two confused. Those that that hold to the water vapor canopy theory, that was all back in the day before, when you were ignorant of Psalm 148, verse 4. Praise him, you waters which are above the heavens. The firmament, it didn't used to testify, it didn't used to tell of the works of God's hands. The firmament is constantly declaring the works of God's hands. It didn't used to. Okay, we don't translate that. And when you come to Psalm 150, okay, praise Yah, praise El in his sanctuary, praise him in the firmament of his power, okay? We understand the firmament then is, the sanctuary that God has built, okay, in creation. So anyhow, this is the conception here, somewhat, we would say, that we have, we're in an enclosed system here, okay? And this seems to be what is depicted in the Hebrew Bible. Okay, now we're going to come here to some Memphite theology from Egypt here. And what we've got here, we've got the earth god, we've got Geb down here. Okay, he's the earth god. We've got Nut, and she sure is a nut. This is Nut, she represents the firmament, and you can see that all throughout her body here is the stars are placed inside of the firmament here. And we've got Shu here, the god of the air here. He's holding up her body. We've got the bark of the sun here, the boat that carries the sun across the sky. So in the morning, the sun supposedly comes out of her mouth, and at night comes back in here somewhere, okay, and then in the morning, it's just on this cycle here. So this is the way the ancient Egyptians here conceived of the world. There is a firmament, okay? Notice there's the firmament here, and this is so this is Geb, the god of the earth down here, and then the sun is up here in the upper firmament, and the stars, just exactly like the Hebrew Bible. So the Egyptian cosmology. So remember, Moses came out of Egypt, and so he would have known this. Obviously, remember, he married the priest's daughter, right? That was Joseph. So Joseph would have understood it as well. But Moses here, he was learned in all of the knowledge of ancient Egypt. So he knew this conception of the world, and that there was some truth to this, okay, minus all their gods and their representations of that. But anyhow, this is how the ancient, this is ancient Egyptian cosmology, how they perceived it, and you can see here it's very, very easy to see how it's very close to ancient Hebrew cosmology. Okay, so on this slide we're looking here at Mesopotamian cosmology. Now, remember we talked about Tiamat, right? So this here is this dragoness, okay? This dragoness here. This is the how the goddess Tiamat is depicted. She's a dragon, and this is Marduk here, who slays her in the coming from the Enuma Elish on the fourth tablet there, where he slays Tiamat and flays her body like a shellfish, and with half of the fillet he creates the firmament, and then with the other half he creates the earth. And Tiamat is the conception. She was the ocean waters, the salt waters of the of original creation. Apsu here was the god of fresh water. So this was her consort, and so this is a cylinder seal here of the battle of Marduk against the dragon serpentine Tiamat, okay, and this is a conception of their world according to ancient Sumerian historians. Okay, then here we're looking here at this is the god Shamash in both of these depictions here. Here you can see him that he's seated upon the heavenly waters, and these are the stars embedded here and here's the firmament right here, okay? And then we have the stars, and then we have the heavenly waters, and so this is an ancient depiction here of Shamash. On this side here, this is Hammurabi here, and this is the law code down here below, down here in cuneiform script. So I'll read this here. Hammurabi is best known for having issued the Code of Hammurabi, which he claimed to have received from Shamash, the Babylonian god of justice. Unlike earlier Sumerian law codes, such as the Code of Ur-Nammu, which had focused on compensating the victim of the crime, the law of Hammurabi was one of the first law codes that placed greater emphasis on the physical punishment of the perpetrator. And so here we have the god Shamash, which means sun, the sun god. In Hebrew would be Shemesh, and this here's Hammurabi standing before the sun god, and he gives him this law code down here. And this is like, it's if you look at Psalm 19, we've got the hymn of creation in one, in verses like I don't know, it's 1 to 4c, and then in 5 to 6 you've got the hymn of the sun, and then when you got down there to verse 7 all the way down, you've got the hymn of the law. So you have and so we have this the hymn of the sun here in Psalm 19 there, talking about the sun, going forth from his, bridal chambers, rejoicing like a strong man to run a race, yada, yada, yada. But we got to remember, this is the sun god here, Shamash here, and he's giving a law code. So people have looked at the law of Yahweh is perfect, redeeming the soul. The testimony of Yahweh is sure, making wise the simple. So you can see there that you've got the sun, the hymn of the sun, and then you've got the law coming after that in verse 7. So there's connections here to that you could see here, a Religionsgeschichte approach. These are the cuneiform documents that come from the ancient world, and we can see that Shamash here is seated above the firmament here, and the heavenly waters are here, and embedded in it are the sun. So he's pictured as seated above the firmament in his kingly approach, although he's identified with the sun, which would be below the firmament. But here there's contradictory things, in their ideas, when they have the God enthroned. He's going to be above the firmament, and so this is mirroring, the Old Testament. This is just like, what is Ezekiel? He sees Yahweh on a throne above the firmament. Okay, we looked at that last time. Okay, so we'll come here and we'll look lastly here at this Sumerian cosmology here. In the eyes of the Sumerian teachers and sages, the major components of the universe, in the more narrow sense of the word, were heaven and earth. Indeed, their term for universe was Anki, a compound word meaning heaven, earth. I mean, that's just in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The apple don't fall too far from the tree here. Okay, so they're all these cosmologies are related. They were all, remember when Noah came off the ark, all of this stuff was known, through Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and then obviously before with the antediluvians. It states here, the earth was a flat disk surmounted by a vast hollow space, completely enclosed by a solid surface in the shape of a vault. Just what this heavenly solid was thought to be is still uncertain. To judge from the fact that the Sumerian term for tin is metal of heaven. Think of that, metal of heaven. That's wow. That's incredible. That their term for tin is the metal of heaven. It may have been tin. Between the heaven and earth, they recognized a substance they called Lil, a word whose approximate meaning is wind, air, breath, spirit. Its most significant characteristic seems to be the movement and expansion. It therefore corresponds roughly to our atmosphere. The sun, moon, and planets, stars were taken to be made of the same stuff as the atmosphere, but endowed. In addition, with the quality of luminosity, surrounding the heaven and earth on all sides, as well as top and bottom, was the bottomless sea in which the universe somehow remained fixed and immovable. So this is Samuel Noel Kramer. He is the famous, basically Sumerian cosmologist and historian. Okay, so now what we need to do is go from the ancient text to modern interpretation. How do we bring this down to earth? Okay, so I figured that this here, this particular picture here brings everything down to earth for us, okay? Because we'll see in real short that this is a I downloaded this picture off of NASA's website here. Okay, so we're looking here at at America and Mexico primarily. You can see that this is the Gulf of Mexico, and this is Florida over here. This is the Yucatan Peninsula. Okay, so there's a little sliver here of Central America left. All of South America is on the other. It's nighttime in South America. Okay, so we can see California here, the Great Central Valley, the Sierra Nevadas. You can't, Northern California, all the way up to Washington is beclouded. I mean, basically all of it's nighttime in Canada, according to this. Definitely nighttime in Alaska here. And somewhere over on the other side of this globe is the North Pole. Okay. Now, the South Pole has to be on the other side too. So it looks like the way this thing's going to work is that South America, heck, I think the North Pole and the South Pole are both going to come into, they're going to meet somewhere around in here. But we got a lot more worse problems than that going on this NASA picture supposedly taken from space. To go from New York to London is further than the United States is wide. It's about 2,700 miles. It's quite a bit further to London. And then, on how we perceive where Japan is over here on the other side of the North Pacific, it's definitely wider than the United States is wide. But here's the problem: you got to come to Europe, which has, it should have maybe one or at the most two time zones. But Russia has 11 time zones. So you can't fit Russia in the northern hemisphere in this picture. There's not enough room to fit Russia. Russia itself would wrap itself all the way around because we've got Eastern, we've got Central, we got Mountain, and we got Pacific. We got 4 time zones. Russia has 11, okay, which would more than itself wrap itself all the way around this globe. So we know that this is a fraud. And it's not a picture of Earth from space. So you're asking me, well, gosh, you're telling me that that we believe that the Earth is flat and there's a dome above us. Well, you're trying to tell me that this is a picture of Earth from space, and that Russia can fit in the northern hemisphere? And that the North Pole and the South Pole are going to meet somewhere around here on the other side of this globe? Excuse me? Okay, let's look at another picture of Earth from space. Wow, America went on a keto diet. Check that out. On this picture of Earth from space, wow, how America lost a lot of weight, man. So did South America, man. They must have not been eating the frijoles here, and they must have not been eating the fries up here, man. And wow, something went on. The keto diet was, man, I have never seen how the continents of the Earth can lose weight. Wow, this was also taken off of the NASA website of pictures of Earth from space. Now look, just whatever you have to say, whatever you're going to criticize, you got crow all over your face. Yeah, and now we come here to this particular slide. Now, this is the equatorial part of Africa here, and Lake Victoria is situated somewhere here. The Nile River flows all the way from Lake Victoria. The equator goes right over the lake, by the way. The equator is right over the lake, where Lake Victoria is at. And it ends up here somewhere, up here at Alexandria, Egypt. This is about 4,000 miles, okay? Now, this globe also has a lot of problems with it. According to this picture, it's nighttime in Moscow, okay? It's nighttime. Oh, it's nighttime in Paris? Okay, all of North Europe, London, okay, it's nighttime, okay. All these cities should be light. Okay, remember the Earth is spinning towards the east, okay? It's going towards the east. And so Moscow, Paris, and London never saw light on this day. Wow. I mean, I don't know. It's so strange. How could it be dark? How could it be dark up there? Oh my gosh. Wow. I mean, you know what? I have a lot of confidence in NASA. I have so much confidence. You know, you're just sitting there, you're going, wow, well, this guy's following biblical cosmology. You know, we know the Earth's a globe. We know there's nothing hard above us. We've been to the moon. Okay. So if your bubble hasn't been popped, let's get something. Let's poke this thing. Let's poke this balloon and pop it, because this is the biggest lie we've ever been told. And believe me, I believed it. We all believed it. We were brought up on it. The people we trusted believed it. All of the institutions of power are enshrined on this and protect this and keep this, and they hold the key of knowledge. But their own pictures show that they're liars. And I didn't take this picture. I didn't post this. I didn't post any of these. These were all taken off of NASA's own website. So if you got a problem with you know, you say you got a problem with my interpretation, well, you know, what do you think I think of your interpretation? Okay, you and I were all fed a crock of lies to believe in this thing. Okay, because this doesn't exist. Okay, it only you know exists on this CGI images that they put up. Now we'll look at something a little more down to earth here, and that's called the Nile River. Okay, the Nile River. It starts here at Alexandria, and it ends here at Alexandria, Egypt. It dumps into the Mediterranean Sea. And it starts here at Lake Victoria. And the equator is about right here. Goes right over the lake. And it flows downhill. Okay, it flows down. All rivers flow downhill. Okay. And this here is about 3,700 feet elevation. That is the elevation of Lake Victoria here. Okay. Equatorial waters here. And it's flowing downhill all the way to 31 degrees north latitude in the northern hemisphere, supposedly, all the way to Alexandria, Egypt. Okay, you can read this. This was all taken off of, I believe I just took it off of Wikipedia here. But you know, this isn't a lie. This is the White Nile. It goes all the way here. We got the Blue Nile here. It's another feeder that comes in. It feeds the Nile River, and it goes all the way here. Now, there's a big problem with this, because let's say this is 31 degrees north latitude. Okay, so if you've ever, since we were all told we live on a spherical Earth, well, we know all rivers flow downhill. This river should be flowing to Cape Town, not Cairo. Okay, it should be flowing to Cape Town, South Africa, not up here to Cairo. Okay, you can look at this particular slide a little bit more. I'm going to move on here. And you can see in this picture, here's the equator, okay, 0, goes right over Lake Victoria. So you know that what we're dealing with here, okay. This is, and then it goes north all the way to Egypt, to the Mediterranean Sea. So I'm not lying in what I'm telling you, and this has consequences, okay. Now, if we're to look here in Texas, for example, the latitude of Temple, Texas, just north of Austin, it's 31 degrees north. So that's like a river flowing downhill from the Amazon River in Brazil all the way to Temple, Texas, on a globe. So hopefully you understand the predicament you're in, because if you're at Temple, Texas, you got to walk in an uphill trajectory for 4,000 miles straight south, all the way to Brazil, to the equator. But that's because you got to walk uphill, because all rivers flow downhill. So wherever you're going to land, you're going to be in higher elevation than you are here at Temple, Texas. You'll never reach the equator, which is way, way, way down there somewhere in Brazil, 4,000 miles to the south. That's what's going on right here. Okay? If you're at Alexandria, Egypt, you got to walk uphill all the way to Lake Victoria, which is 4,000 miles. You'll never ever, it's going to be higher in elevation than Alexandria, Egypt, but on a spherical Earth, that's impossible. It's totally impossible. Okay, because it's uphill, it's not downhill. So we'll move on. So a good friend of mine, nice guy, and I understand where he's coming from, because we were all like this. I had told him and talked to him about this. He goes, "Oh yeah, it's real simple. I can tell you how the Nile River here, from Lake Victoria up here, I can show you how it's gonna flow all the way down here. It's real simple." So he got this little lump of clay here, and he put it up here, and he slapped it on this globe. He goes, "See, John, right here. That's how you get it there." And, but I don't, curvature here. See this globe? Curvature? There's a nasty problem with this. The standard measure for determining Earth's curvature is the miles squared times 8 inches. So just to go 10 miles, okay, on the globe, 10 miles, right? Okay, so 10 times 10 is 100, times 8 is 800. When you divide 800 by 12 to get the feet, it's 60. These are really bad numbers. 66.6 feet. Okay. Now this river is not 100 miles. It's not 1,000 miles. It's 4,000 miles long. So at 100 miles, okay. Now to go from, just to let you know, to go from Alexandria, Egypt to Cairo, just this little part of about right here, it's 135 miles. Okay. At 100 miles, using the standard curvature, this is not ours. This is what, the NASA says here. That you're gonna go 100 times 100 times 8 divided by 24. You get 6,666.6 feet. A lot of sixes in here, folks, right? So this is their numbers, their devil numbers, okay? So at just 100 miles from Alexandria to Cairo, there's 6,666 feet of curvature. Okay, we already determined that, we saw that Lake Victoria sits at 3,700 feet and some change. Okay, that's where it's at. So this mountain of clay that my good friend made, he just didn't understand the consequences of curvature, and that when the Earth curves, there's a nasty thing tied to it. Okay, and that's going to be this this curvature formula. So just to go to Cairo, Egypt, the mountain would have to be, according to a spherical Earth model, the mountain would have to be over a mile high. And we're not talking, this isn't 100 miles, this is not 1,000, it's 4,000 miles long. So by the time, my good friend builds up his clay model here, it's no longer a globe, okay? It's some big, massive horn that's, How high it is, it's astronomical, folks. It's astronomical. But you can check this all out. You just type in curvature of the Earth formula. It's the miles squared times 8 inches. Then you divide that by 12, and you'll figure it out, whatever it is in feet. So you folks, look, if you're saying that, you got problems with biblical cosmology, well, I got problems with modern cosmology. Well, this has been Biblical Theology, Exegesis, and Hermeneutics, where meaning is always context-driven. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Well, this has been a very exciting series, and one that I've been dwelling on for a very, very long time, like most people do before they make something like this. So I just ask that you would consider and weigh, what we've said here, and I'm sure that you'll come, sooner or later to the understanding that we're not twisting the Scripture. This is, nor reality. This is actually what's going on. All right. God bless.